By the time we reach midlife, it can feel like absolutely everything is up for review and all at once. Where we live, the work we're doing, the people who still need us in our lives, our health, our sense of well-being, what we actually want for ourselves. We want answers, and often none seem to be readily available. The discomfort and the uncertainty sometimes feel unbearable, yet we know that something's got to and is meant to change. We can feel it, that shift just around the corner, but what is it? And are we actually able to go there and make the changes? I've been living in that liminal space between stories this whole summer, and something is finally bearing fruit. And so today I want to share how to get through this space between stories. We all end up in this space at some point or another, especially as we approach the second half of life. I want to talk about what happens when we actually listen within it instead of trying so hard to get out of it, and what happens on the other side of it if we do listen. This space between stories, this space where everything feels so uncertain and confusing and maybe overwhelming and all the unanswered questions, by the time we're crossing into that second half of life, so much has already been up for review. We might have even been through multiple moments of this space between stories, multiple experiences of this. And maybe you can relate to this in the sense that maybe you're in it now, or maybe you've been through it and and I can say that I wish I could tell you that it's not going to happen again, but there's a lot of reasons it actually does happen. And believe it or not, it's very specific that it happens at midlife. A lot of us think it's so arbitrary, or it just has to do with getting older or the midlife crisis or things like that. But if we can allow ourselves to be with this space, knowing that as we move through all these changes, a huge shift, a huge transformation, a huge initiation is actually happening in our lives and is possible. And it's really tempting to want to rush on to the next stage. I just want to get through this. I want to get the answers. I want to find what to do. That's common, of course. And as a result, we certainly could choose to stay busy or push through or continue to focus on how to cope and manage. But if we do those things that we so commonly typically do in our overculture of trying to control and predict and know everything, then we end up completely missing a more authentic expression of ourselves that our soul is calling us to. This may be the life we long for, but if we don't meet this time, that life stays out of reach. It's a missed opportunity to trust ourselves more. But how do we stay in it? How do we meet it? Well, this time sometimes comes with the feeling of, I feel like I'm going crazy. I definitely felt like this summer. We may feel like, what is going on? What is happening? Why? I thought I just came out of something and here I am again. So I want to share how this showed up for me this summer. And it probably came on more in the early part of the year. And I'm 55 years old, and in a moment, I'm going to explain to you why that actually matters. But as I approached the spring, I started feeling almost like like this rub, like something just had to shift. And then as the summer started to approach, I could really feel it starting to amp up. And by the time I was in the thick of summer, by July or so, I could feel this incredible, full reevaluation of my entire life coming on. I mean, I was thinking about my sons and my relationship with them and what that is and where it's going and how it's changing. Natural, they're young adults in their early 20s, and naturally things are going to change, right? But I was also thinking a lot about where I'm supposed to live. I have this feeling that I'm not going to be staying put for a lot longer. And yet I'm not quite ready to make the full leap. So what is that about? What's going on? And my business, my life and spiritual coaching practice and teaching and membership program and the journals that I write and all these things, everything has just been up for review. And I've been reevaluating everything. And even my health has been great, but something in me was like, okay, what is really going well? What's not going well? And then just even looking at my path overall and my relationships on that path, it's been a constant questioning and almost a feeling like I am desperate to figure it out. I want the answers. I wanted the answers. And I want to share that there's actually a reason this happens. And no, I'm not and wasn't going crazy. And no, you're not going crazy if this is what you're experiencing, even though it can feel kind of intense and you're kind of like, why is this going on? What is happening in my life? Why does this feel so big? Why does it feel like everything is all up for reevaluation all at the same time? Well, there's something called a nodal return. Now, I'm going to just say I am not an astrologer, but I have studied star wisdom for over 20 years now, and I absolutely love it. I keep getting deeper and deeper into it, especially in midlife, because I'm finding it so valuable. There's a video that I made talking about why I use specifically sidereal astrology. I'll be sure to link to that in the description because it's so powerful for helping us align with our soul in particular and our soul path. But today I want to just mention this concept of nodal returns. And I may be sharing some things you've not heard before about this. But basically, a nodal return is where they're called the moon nodes, and there's a south node and a north node. And in our astrological birth chart, we're born at a certain time, and that south node is at a certain place, and the north node is at a certain place at that time of birth. The south node is indicative of where we've come from, the gifts, the karma that we've resolved and moved through, or that we might even be bringing. And then the north node is where we're going, where we're headed, what we're meant to move toward. And it could include a combination of carrying the gifts from the south node toward the north node, or using the gifts from the south node to get to the north node, to get to that place of where we're supposed to be headed in this life, or letting go of and releasing those things from the south node in order to get to the north node, to find what's new, to not rely upon those old skills and talents and gifts, but rather cultivate new ones, cultivate new experiences. Now, this is important because once we start to see that this is actually going on, first of all, it can really help us feel less crazy. But here's why it actually matters and how it traces to this notion of midlife. So a nodal return, you've probably heard more likely the concept of a Saturn return. Any kind of planetary return happens when that planet is back at the same place it was at your birth. So, and planets move very mathematically. And so there's a very systemic rhythm to these planetary movements. So for instance, Jupiter moves around the entire zodiac every 12 years. So where Jupiter is when we're born is going to be back at that same spot in the sky 12 years later, roughly, give or take, barring things like retrogrades and other details. But these nodes, the north and south node, we have a nodal return every 18.6 years, give or take again. And these nodal returns can act like a cosmic wake-up call, and they can trigger us to break down our old patterns and ultimately align with our spiritual purpose. Now, hear me out here, because it's really fascinating to think about when these happen. The first nodal return is happening roughly 18 years, 19 years old in that year. Many of us might even remember, or I, having young 20-somethings in my family, it's so recent that they were going through, it's almost like an identity crisis, this notion of who am I, where did I come from, and where am I going next? And at the age of 18, we're trying to find the identity. It's very ego-based. It's a preparation for the full incarnation of the ego that's still incarnating for the first 21 years or so of our lives. And so that nodal return is like, Are you ready for this? Are you ready to go into that space of working with and cultivating consciousness in the realm of ego? So that's one thing. But here's where it becomes incredibly powerful at midlife. The second nodal return happens 37, 38 years old. Now, I have forever said to so many women that I work with, and often I get contacted by women approaching 37, 38 years old, that time frame is often what many people express as feeling like the first dark night of the soul. Interestingly, for me, it would have been 2007, 2008, and that was when I was getting my divorce. And there's something in the work of Rudolf Steiner that I have always found incredibly helpful to help me understand my years, my progression of my consciousness development, soul development. And he talks about the years from age 21 to 42 being the sun years. And it's our consciousness soul development toward what I like to call true adulthood. So it's like, what? We don't become adults until 42? I thought it was 18 or 21, right? That's the common narrative in our overculture. But actually, it takes time to grow into what it means to actually be an embodied adult, to actually work with and live with and get to know ourselves. And a lot of times we spend those second 21 years of our lives trying to fit in, putting on masks, looking for where we belong, where we fit in, and yet also learning to navigate, learning what the world needs and how to navigate in it, what's expected of us. So it's not necessarily all a bad thing. I'm not saying that. This is a natural progression. And this is why these things like nodal returns can be so helpful to help us understand what's going on. So we might experience that sense of a dark night of the soul at the second nodal return, somewhere between age 37 and 38. But part of what's happening is we're beginning to open up to those soul forces that want to embody the spirit. We're preparing to embody the spirit. Now, here's where my age, 55, becomes important here, because the third nodal return is between 55 and 56. Now, this is a very significant threshold, really crossing into that second half of life. When we're approaching 38, we're kind of just getting into it. We might even experience symptoms of things like perimenopause or the fatigue or that first dark night of the soul. Or maybe we notice we feel a little depressed and we've never been depressed, or we're questioning everything. That's kind of what begins to happen. And then we have another period of time where maybe we're still trying to grow into things and figure things out and take action in a different way that is really starting to be more soul focused. The soul is wanting to take the reins from that ego portion of the first part of our lives. But now here at 55, it's like a complete review to align even more strongly with my truth, with what I'm here to do, with what I'm called for. Now, I mentioned some of you might be familiar with the Saturn return, and Saturn returns tend to happen at right around 58, 59 years old, give or take, again. But in a way, this nodal return at 55, 56 is kind of preparing us for that. Now, Saturn is our mission. It's like the form and structure that our life takes. It's an opportunity to tap into what we're here to bring to the world. And interestingly, in Steiner's model, when we turn 56, we enter what he calls the Saturn years. And it's a time of bringing our life experiences and our true spiritual individuality out into the world and stepping into soul, into the use of a more intuitive compass for our life, a sense of higher purpose. And it means confronting our inner truths. It especially means living from the inside out. And so much, especially those years up to about 38, when the first moment of the midlife, the second nodal return, but that first time we feel that dark night of the soul when we're transitioning into midlife, we can really feel like maybe we haven't fully lived in alignment with that. And And so then we get into it. We start to cultivate more of that spiritual sense. A lot of times in these years, during that third cycle of the nodal return, before it comes back again at around 55, 56, we end up cultivating a certain level of our spiritual depth. Hopefully, I really believe strongly that we need some level of connection to something bigger than us. And sadly, a lot of people are very bereft of that and struggling as a result. But what can happen as we go into this time, as we shift with this third nodal return at 55, 56, is it can really begin to strip away whatever illusions we've had, whatever delusions we've had, even stripping away some of the ideals that we've had, so that we're not romanticizing our life or fantasizing our life, but actually creating and tapping into a vision that is very much on purpose in alignment with the soul. It strips away what is superficial. So this ends up being a time of really taking full responsibility for one's life. That's part of that Saturn energy. So I'm very much in the thick of this, being prepared to more fully take this up. And again, none of this is cut and dry. It's not like it all happens in one simple moment. This is the beauty of tuning into the cosmos as a method of soul language, because it helps us understand what's happening and why some of these energies are present. Now, I want to just emphasize that you don't need to know and understand things like the North Node, the South Node, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, whatever. You don't have to know the planets. You don't have to understand all the meanings. It's great to cultivate a relationship with them. What I'm trying to get across here is that if that's of interest to you, great. But really what I want to focus on is the energies, to help us recognize that these energies are real. We feel them. My father worked in a psychiatric center, and he found that inevitably the full moons would always bring a tremendous amount of difficulty amongst the patients that were there in his ward. And it was just always fascinating when he would kind of have this trepidation about going to work on a full moon or talk about the intensity of that. And that's real. And that's an example of this cosmic energy. You don't have to know that it's a full moon to feel it. But then a lot of people feel it and say, I don't get it. What's going on? What's happening? But there's something of a relief. You know, we can find some relief when we say, oh, it's a full moon. No wonder I didn't sleep well last night. Or no wonder this is going on. Or no wonder my dog's behaving weird. So if we can say to ourselves, oh, I'm going through a nodal return. I'm going through this sort of reorientation to help me align with my true soul path. And that helps us bring the essential, what is true, to the forefront. It brings wisdom and the eternal and a higher force into our lives in a bigger way. And so when I realized this, I had forgotten this was happening. And so earlier in the summer, I was just like, oh, I want answers. I want to why can't I figure this out? I feel like I have to, make something happen. But it just, once I realized that there was a nodal return happening for me, it just changed everything. It really began to help me relax into it and just say, okay, I could find my compass. I could orient myself to my life, and the knowing that this is perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong. There's not a crisis going on. And so I was able to relax into it and reconsider the whole summer from this perspective instead of something is wrong. And I began to dive more deeply into my chart and see all that was showing up. I was able to surrender into the knowing that all is well. And I had the validation of the stars, of the cosmos, to back me up, right? That this is just a cycle that I'm going through. It's a process and it's natural. And it actually is going to help me align if I can have patience. And so, yes, becoming aware of this helped create patience for me to allow the ripening to happen. So in my Solace program, I associate summer with reconnecting to our sense of values, our sense of purpose. And yes, my precise nodal return happened June 1st. And it's summer. And so not everyone's nodal return is going to happen in the summertime. But mine was happening. And so I really was able to tap into the solace tools, the concept of, okay, what's happening right now? I allowed myself to bring the season into the mix. What is happening in the summer? Well, we're ripening and we're beginning to see a new sense of values. We're reconnecting to our values and our meaning for this time in our life. Our values are constantly evolving. And so again, it made total sense to me, like, here we are, high summer, nodal return. I'm reevaluating what I value, what I really care about, what it has meaning to me. I'm reevaluating my sense of purpose. And yes, of course, early on especially, I tried to escape the discomfort big time. Before I realized this, I was so preferring distracting myself. Right? I distracted myself and stayed busy and numbed out and pretended all was well at sometimes, or just took myself into a doldrum, right? Or I spent tons of time researching, trying to make things happen or get answers ASAP. I wanted to do it right away to really get through it. Or I felt real victim-y and low and just was focused on the injustice of it all. Why me? Why is this happening? I thought things were going so well. And yes, I also wrestled. I tried to bargain with it, to bargain with life, to bargain with these changes and say, really, does this really have to change? Is this what's going on? And I also grieved. I could feel the pain of all that's changing. And change is ultimately a transformation. It's a transition. It's a death and rebirth. And this is the cycle that we have to go through. And this is what these cycles of the rhythms, of cosmic rhythms, point us to. And so I had to grieve all that has to go, maybe all that never was, and what I've been used to. But these were all temporary moments, ultimately toward acceptance and realization. Okay? And I needed to stay with the discomfort. I had to learn to surrender and listen to my soul. And it's okay to meet all those things that I met. It's okay to wrestle. In fact, I think that's healthy. It's part of what moves us. If we just become totally passive, then we're not actually meeting it. But if all we're ever doing is moving and not actually finding the patience and the steadiness to stay with it and allow ourselves to be in it, then trying to find a way out can distract us from the soul language and the soul communication that's trying to come through. So if I kept doing that, I wouldn't find my way into the future that I've been longing for all along. Once I realized this, understanding those cosmic forces that were greater than me, it helped me to see more than my own pain. It helped me to listen within and to surrender. It allowed me to let summer do its ripening. And so whatever season this may happen for you, it'll help you do the work. So if this were to happen to you, for example, in the depth of winter, you've got a seed under the surface that's still getting a lot of work done, but you can't see it because it's under the surface. And so sometimes it's like, okay, just let the field be fallow right now. Let it be quiet for now. And that's you too, because we are nature. We're not just part of nature, we are nature. So whatever season it is for you, that may be part of what you need to tap into in order to allow for what's happening. For me, summer had to ripen, and now here we are approaching the autumn, into the autumn. And I had to stay in the space between stories by ripening through the summer. That's what I learned that I had to do. This is a constant journey to keep meeting ourselves and resist the quick fix, the magic pill, the instant gratification. Even after all my years of using my tools, creating tools for other women to feel more empowered, we can put those at hand, but we're not going to escape these cosmic rhythms. We're not going to escape the changes in the energies that come toward us. And so learning to let things ripen, in my case for summer, allowed me to realize, as things ripen, there's going to be a harvest. The autumn brings harvest, right? And so if I can stay in the space between the stories, there's going to be a harvest. There's going to be something coming out of this. And if this were winter for you, and you're thinking, oh, if I can stay in the fallow field of the seeds beneath the surface and not be able to see what's going on, I can trust that something new is going to bud and emerge and reveal itself in the spring. And I'm not saying it has to take a whole season. In my case, I feel like it's been pretty much the whole summer. And sometimes these things take time. When we can acknowledge where we are, this is where we start to get through this time and move through it with success. So this is why I wanted to bring this nodal understanding, because it supports this. It supports our capacity to be with what's going on. And as I've shared, there's a lot of these points along the way that these nodal returns are impacting, especially when it comes to midlife. And so it helps us realize there's a time for knowing. And maybe that's not always when we want to know or when we desire to know, but we need to stop forcing it and instead get curious, become exploratory, become like an adventurer trying to discover new things, get creative, find your expression around things, be interested in the process, allow yourself to live in the questions. One of the things I share with the women in my Solace program is keep a questions journal. Just let yourself journal the questions. Not questions like, why me? But questions like, I wonder what this thing means that came to you in the process of maybe your contemplations. And just let them sit there. Time is on your side, whether it feels like it or not. We're in perfect timing. But you can't harvest the fruit or eat it before it's ripened, right? So consider where you've been. That's another way to move through this time. You can consider where you've been in terms of the South Node energies, if you want to look at it astrologically, or just in terms of what your life to date has been. It's a great time for reviewing your life to this point. What skills, what talents, what experiences, what wisdom have you cultivated? And then consider where your North Node might be guiding you. Again, you can look at that astrologically, but you can also just listen for that ripening, listen for the soul language. Tune into how many times have I had repeated messages coming at me, like through my dreams or through visions that I see, or, animals that cross my path, whatever it might be. But the key here to move through this time, this space between stories, is to be with who you've become, actually be with her, and be with all that you have with you, all that you've gathered in this lifetime, your tools, your gifts, all of that. It's also a time to question your values. Question what they are now. You might be surprised if you actually take time to do that. That's the reconnecting. And regardless of whether it's happening in the summer or not, these stages that I talk about that my Solace program moves through, they're happening in our lives daily. And of course, macrocosmically, they go on throughout our entire life, but they also happen over the course of a year in the rhythm of the seasons. And when we start to understand some of these things, it just helps us find a compass. It helps us orient. And we begin to look at our values now and how they might have changed. You also might want to explore your why. Why am I doing everything that I'm doing? And does it even feel purposeful or meaningful or fulfilling? This is about getting to know yourself, not trying to change yourself. A lot of times I think we do more inner development, personal growth, that kind of thing, moving up to this stage. By the time we hit that third nodal return, like at my age, you really start to feel that you're no longer really looking at trying to improve yourself. You're trying to really know yourself and show up as yourself in the world. And another suggestion for getting through this time is to play with it. Surrender, release, let go. Allow Mother Earth to compost everything that needs to be released by trusting that she and the cosmos are working on your behalf. Matter and spirit are always working together. And those early stages, especially the second 21 years of our life, those are often a little more focused on the material. And when we really start tapping into and bringing in the spiritual, things begin to change. We get the above and the below. the goddess and the god, the earth and source, the Sophia and the Christ. However you choose to look at it, these are the things that start weaving together in our lives. And we want to trust the knowing that the higher forces are at play here, and play with them. Invite them into your life. Invite them in and let them play with you. Know that it's all to help you be who you came here to be and show up with the gifts that you came here to cultivate and share with the world. Now, you might ask yourself, well, is this me? How do I know for sure if this is me? So if you're in one of these moments of this nodal return, I already mentioned 37, 38, 55, 56, these are the actual returns, but I also want to make mention that the halfway points, if you're thinking of this line, this axis, this north-south axis going across a circle, when it's halfway, then it's forming a cross to that line. And in astrology, that's called a square. And a square can activate something. It's like an activation that says, hey, pay attention to me. And it might create some conflict, okay? So that means we're forming a square to those nodes around 46, 47, and again at 65. And I have a lot of retired women in my programs as well that are saying, they come to that 65 place and they're feeling like, okay, I have time to think about me now. I have time to really be with me. And I want to think again about how I'm showing up in the world and what I'm leaving behind in this world and what I'm creating maybe for my next life, whatever it is that you believe. And these returns really can make a difference. And so I invite you, if you feel like you're in any of these time frames, okay, like I said, 37, 38, 46, 55, 65, these time frames allow you to sit with those questions that I shared. Where have you been? Where are you being guided to go? Who have you become? What tools and skills and assets and experience have you gained on this journey? What's your deeper mission? Why are you doing any of this? Why does it matter? What might you be being shown? Take some time to journal about them. You can do that today. And if you want, download my free journaling workbook. Completely free, offers you all kinds of great tips and tools for how to journal. So be sure to check that out because it might be exactly what helps you. And there's not just one method. I go into 6 different methods in that workbook. And one of them might be exactly what you've been looking for because all the other ones haven't worked, okay? So also, as you're doing your journaling, remember the seasonal nature of things. And you might want to consider attending my completely free community autumn equinox coming up. I always host it on the autumn equinox. And so it's about a month away from when this video is being recorded. But be sure to keep an eye out for that because this year my intention is to do a YouTube live stream with that event. And I will put a link in the description where you can also sign up and for now get a Zoom link in case something doesn't quite work with the YouTube live because I'm new to this technology. But this is one of the ideas I had. This is one of the things coming out of my visioning. I want more people to be exposed to this. I've done these quarterly equinox and solstice gatherings for a long time. And I just feel like it's time to put them out more broadly, and having this podcast and the YouTube platform in particular allows it to be more visible and people to exchange more easily and to see it and to realize how the seasons make an impact on us. And so if you want to begin to understand what are the cosmic forces that are happening with the seasons, what are the, some of the traditional festivals associated with the seasons, how can I tap into them? How can they be an archetypal reference to help me know where I am in the rhythm of the year and how it's impacting my soul? Be sure to check that out and RSVP for the autumn equinox and watch for the YouTube live stream opportunities that are going to be coming up. So I promise it's worth the pause. It's worth taking time to do this. You're going to find yourself feeling greater ease. You're going to feel like when you can actually sit with that space between the stories that you come out able to step into the flow of your life in a bigger way. It prepares you. Pausing and sitting in it prepares you for the next phase. And when you start to recognize there are reasons, energetic and cosmic reasons for this, it creates a sense of relief for you. And it allows your soul to take the reins without you fighting so much to resist and hold on to what's been, which ultimately also helps you trust in yourself more. When you let it ripen, it will bear fruit, whatever it is for you. I discovered all of these things. I've seen new pathways forward in my business, like the live streams I'm talking about to stay tuned for. I've seen clarity on next steps for where I want to live. I've started seeing a sense of peace in relation to my sons and how our relationships are changing and the beauty of it all, and how change doesn't have to be scary or foreboding or difficult or uncomfortable. It can be so beautiful and something to fully embrace. I have cultivated an exceptional strength and energy and lightness in my being this summer, with a sense of health and great vitality that I feel, which has also been beautiful. And I think if I spent the summer fighting instead of surrendering into this space between stories, I would not be feeling that right now. I am definitely feeling a deeper intuition, just in time for that Saturn stage of life that brings even greater purpose expression. Moving in a couple years from now to my Saturn return and making sure I'm really aligned with that mission that I came here to serve. I'm allowing myself to be with it, and I'm seeing the fruits. I'm seeing the benefits. So I wasn't falling apart. You're not falling apart. But I was coming together, and you are too, I promise. This is part of the initiation of midlife. It's cosmic forces at play with the nodal returns. It's an offering of the gifts that we've been working toward and longing for. Maybe you're standing in this right now. I'm right here with you, just on the other side of it. So play with the forces at play. Know that nothing is falling apart, but rather it's all coming together. Until next time, keep tuning in to the language of soul, because soul knows the way.